Her debut novel, Clown Girl, published by Hawthorne Books, was a finalist for the Ken Kesey Award, won the Eric Hoffer Award for Best Micropress Title, as well as an Ippy Award for Storyteller of the Year from the Independent Publisher Book Awards. Ms. Drake returns to us tonight to celebrate the hardcover, arguably, hardcover publication of her new novel, which is 30% off here at Powell's, The Stud Book. And it has received heavy accolades from just about every shining star in Portland's literary firmament, from Cheryl Strayed and Chuck Palahniuk to Lydia Yuknovich and Chelsea Kane, many of whom are probably right here, right now. Here to tell us all about it is the author, Monica Drake.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Can you hear? Is this in the right place? Is that good? Are you saying move it up a little bit? How's that? Okay, all right. There, how's that? It's so nice to be here, and it's really nice to see everybody here. It's kind of overwhelming. It's just a wonderful turnout, and I was just thinking about it, where to start. It's amazing to be a writer in Portland and to have such a great community. And I was thinking about it in relation to the Oregon Book Awards, and I appreciate the awards. It's wonderful the way they honor strong writing, but one of the downfalls of awards is just that it can pit one writer against another to say who won, and there's a little bit of a troubling edge to that. And I think that when you're really practicing writing in Portland, what you feel, what I have been fortunate enough to feel, is more the support, not the competition. And that's what I kind of want to just think about right now, because there's so much support in this room right now, and I just know how, I'm going to get tearful. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to Tom's Bandauer, so I won't get tearful. Wait to Tom. When I first started writing, there's one moment that always stands out to me in Tom's workshop when he said, just send your work out and let it get rejected, and we'll all just get rejected, and we'll make a great big pile of rejection slips on the paper, on the table, and he held his hand out to sort of gesture to how big our pile of rejections would be, and it created this visual, and we never physically piled up the rejection slips, but it was as though we did, and it took away that fear of having work rejected, knowing that everybody was doing the same thing. And we've just kept doing it until many of us have gotten published. And you just keep going. Another thing Tom said was you just keep putting the time in, you just clock in like a job until you get a raise. And I did that, I'm still doing it. So I credit Tom with so much of that motivation. Can we give Tom Spanbauer a hand? While we're clapping for people, can we clap for my mom and dad in the front row too? they're both writers as well. I've grown up with them as writers, so I say Tom really sent me on my way, but they both taught me so much about writing my whole life. So yeah, there's my mom and dad, Barbara Drake and Bud Drake. Thank you everybody for being here. You're all very kind. What else? Am I forgetting anything before I read? This outfit, I have this carefully chosen outfit. It's meant to be a sort of subtle reminder of the body, or a not so subtle reminder, that this book is about reproduction, but it's really sort of about the human body is what it is. So the book has a lot of sort of bodily content in it, different ways of looking at the body. So that's what this outfit is meant to be. I don't know if you guys saw it. It does look a little bit like bacon, but it's muscles. All right. Questions? Yeah? All right, I'll read a little bit. I'm just going to read from the front, from the first chapter, and then we'll have questions. And say you're a night crawler in warm ground, Your body is a tube within a tube, soft as foreskin. You're a hermaphroditic sex organ burrowing through dark earth, a reproductive decomposer. Fully loaded with 2 sets of testicles, 2 testes sacs, ovaries, sperm, and eggs, seminal vesicles, seminal receptacles. The parts sound almost spiritual, nearly Catholic, really. And you have what it takes to build an army, a generation. The heartbreak? You're not an asexually reproductive creature, not like a lonely sea sponge or a budding hydra. You can't fertilize yourself. You have needs. Your job is to find another earthworm, a dew worm, an angler, to swap sperm, fertilize your eggs, and incubate them in a slime tube, a belly band, a pale pink saddle you'll wear briefly around your waist until you slip it off over your head like a silky nightgown. Charm your way into a biological destiny. Blind hermaphrodites find each other in the dark. It happens all the time. Sarah stepped over one pale banded worm on the damp asphalt walk of the Oregon Zoo. She saw the belly band, the slime tube, and thought, babies, so dear, even in a lowly worm. She carried a timer and a clipboard, pulled her coat closed against a fine rain, and leaned on the railing of the mandrill habitat. Inside the enclosure, the kingpin man-ape gave a flying leap. Leaves tumbled in his wake. He moved from his high perch to a low branch, and on the way flashed his penis, where his body was red as a rash. If that mandrill were Sarah's baby, she'd powder his rash. Not with talc. Talc is pure cancer. She'd dust sweet cornstarch on the flaming red genital area between that mandrill's muscular, hairy thighs. Except his wasn't really a rash, and she knew it. Baby fantasy over. She was a professional. Mandrill penises are red, their scrotums are lilac. He'd be a grotesque infant, big and buried in hair. The sky was blanketed with gray clouds as bright as aluminum, hiding a winter sun. Visitors moved in tight packs in the rain over the tended zoo grounds. Kids lurched ahead of their parents with room to roam and no streets to cross. A sullen flock of teens clustered at a cement picnic table around a paper basket of French fries. They had a fat pink baby in a fat pink fleece jacket in a stroller nearby. Who was the mother? They were all kids themselves. Sarah was twice their age and watched their parenting, or their lack of parenting, as though the teenagers were her assigned animal behavior study. If her first baby had survived, the child would be 3 years old, with sticky ice cream-coated fingers pressing against the glass in front of all the animals. Her timer beeped. In the mandrill enclosure, and you don't say cage in a modern zoo, you say enclosure. A newborn named Lucy clung to the rich olive hair of her mother's chest. The two huddled on a shelf against a back wall. The mother ate nits from Lucy's coat, and Sarah marked grooming on her chart. Sarah would eat bugs from her own baby's hair if that's what motherhood required. That baby mandrill was Sarah's field study. The patriarch, though, with his strut and flash, he was a steady distraction. The more color a mandrill shows in his red, white, and blue behind, the more testosterone is cruising through his system. And this one advertised his virility like a flag. His ass was an ornament. That's what you'd call it in evolutionary terms. On his branch, this head honcho tugged his golden beard. He clamored and waved his ornament, like a second face there to say hello. On sunny days, visitors snapped photos to post on the internet. They took videos. He was a crowd pleaser. With an ornament like that, you'd think survival of the fittest was about drawing hits on YouTube. The timer beeped again. Baby Lucy banged a stick in loose straw on the shelf where she perched, and Sarah marked play behavior. One of the lone females followed the patriarch, walking close behind, like his flash ass was the ice cream truck, and she had change in her pocketbook. This was mandrill flirting. Toward the back of the cage, another female sat with her legs tucked against her body. She was pregnant, the previous customer to chase that ice cream. Mandrills generally don't show pregnancy the way humans do, but this wasn't her first round. Her body had thickened, the muscles grown slack from carrying earlier offspring, and now her pregnancy was pronounced. A woman with a stroller pushed past, her baby under a clear plastic rain liner like a little biosphere. Didn't babies suffocate under plastic? It certainly wasn't teaching good habits, but at the same time, the plastic dome made the baby seem precious and revered, like a diamond in a case, or a doll tightened down inside a plastic box. If Sarah's second baby had survived, it'd be 23 months old by now, spitting out the names of animals from around the world. Toward the zoo entrance on the horizon, a white van edged its way over the top of a distant hill. KZTV News, it said on the side, and the timer beeped. Lucy rested snug against her mother, mouth on a teat. The mother wrapped a protective hand around her child, and Sarah marked nursing. The news van stopped where the paths grew narrow. Its sliding door opened, and a crew tumbled out. First came the reporter, a correspondent out in the field, identifiable by her markings. She had a helmet of blonde hair, a large head, a tweed skirt. Why was there a news van on zoo grounds? One of the teen girls stood up from the picnic table, stretched, and showed a lump under her coat like a beer gut, or another baby on the way, or maybe both. Sarah bit the end of her pencil. The news crew approached on foot. The reporter, in heels, skittered along the curving path like Dorothy on her way to see the wizard, flanked by her loose-legged cameraman and a bearded guy in a headset. The cameraman balanced a shoulder cam over his puffy winter coat. A woman so young she was practically a girl carried a clipboard and led the way like their own little Toto. They traveled toward Sarah. Her guess? They were hunting for a feel-good story on baby Lucy. She saw it coming. They'd want her expertise. She'd have to hold back. She didn't work in PR and wasn't authorized to answer press questions. Zoo publicity was a tricky business of walking a line between protesters and wealthy donors. Portland is a city of vocalized opinions and insta-activism. Sarah's job was strictly to compile data. The reporter would ask about the mandrills. She'd have to decline. She felt a conflict of interest creep closer with each step of the news crew on the rain-darkened asphalt trail. She was proud to work for the zoo, and the air that greeted her daily inside the zoo walls was a particularly habitable atmosphere, and her role was very small, but it was hers. And breeding was a tightly planned eugenics exercise. Animal curators worked with algorithms of the International Species Information System to determine who would breed and who, among the genetically redundant, was given birth control. Every zoo manages a budget. They know how many animals they can support, and they have data to prove who brings in the income. Pandas, elephants, monkeys. The lazy sun bear and the warty pigs serve as chorus girls. And each mandrill birth was recorded in an international stud book, an official intergenerational record of who has sex, who's born, who lives fast, who dies young. The stud book is like a Mormon genealogy, or like all those famous begats in the Bible. It's like People magazine for caged animals, singing the song of celebrity birth. It'd be gossip if it weren't seriously about bolstering the genetic makeup of dwindling animal populations. The young woman with the news crew traipsed in her white keds that miraculously stayed white even in the rain. She seemed to grow younger as she came closer, and she smiled, showing friendly teeth. Sarah hated to turn her down, sensing a kindred spirit. They both had clipboards, but it was zoo policy. The woman, reached out a hand as though to shake, to touch skin in a behavioral display of goodwill. And Sarah put her hand out too, only then, instead of shaking, the girl tucked her clipboard under her arm and rolled her hand, calling the reporter in, like reeling in a fish. And the correspondent stepped in close and then closer, bringing along a cloud of hairspray. This is how elephant cows assert dominance. They sway closer and closer until one gives up ground. Sarah was that cow. She gave up ground. The reporter stepped a sharp heel on the mother-father hermaphrodite worm, where it inched along the asphalt, right on the belly band. Her foot skidded. Babies! She caught herself as if it never happened. The reporter's hair blocked Sarah's view of the mandrills. When the timer beeped, Sarah said, "Excuse me." and the teenagers at the table watched like they were on TV already. The human primate in the stroller sucked its pacifier while the man-ape flashed his best feature. And Sarah bobbed her head to one side of the reporter's hairdo and then to the other, trying to do her job. It was important work. She was here for the zoo, for science, for the future of humanity. She'd definitely turned down their silly little media request. She'd hoard her specialized information. If her third baby had lived, it'd be 6 months old, in her arms, and they wouldn't crowd her this way if she were flanked by her children. She'd be a different person, hold a different place in the world. She'd have what Georgie, the old Georgie, her child-free academic drinking buddy, that denizen of the life of the mind, would have called, as though from a great intellectual distance, the cultural legitimization conferred through motherhood. Was that ever such a bad thing? But Georgie had changed. She had a baby. She had that legitimizing child. And the only infant in Sarah's care was Lucy. So she'd protect Lucy's privacy. And the girl with the clipboard said, "Ma'am, sorry, what we need is for you to get out of the frame." That's the end of chapter 1. Thank you. Should we do questions? I'm interested in your questions. Yes?
I've never asked you that before, but I was wondering, your husband's a writer too, and I was wondering, do you guys show each other your work?
He's right there, my husband, Cass Alonso. And Cass also has a book out right now. He has a book out called The Pet Thief that just came out with FC2. Do we show each other our work? We do sometimes. We're pretty busy and yeah, but we do.
Works for your relationship to do that, or it's not?
Yeah. So far, so good. So far, so great. Thank you. Jessica.
I'm wondering how much time you spent at the zoo and how you did your research.
Well, I a very, very long time ago, so long ago it would not be hard to find out because Rama was an infant. When the elephant who's there now, you know who I mean when I say Rama? He's an elephant at the zoo. When he was an infant, I was an intern at the zoo. And so I spent a lot of time watching him as a baby and watching a couple other elephants. Sun Sarin was another one. And then there was a third one. And I forget the third one's name. I don't think that one is here anymore. So that was quite some years ago. And I worked largely from memory, except for I didn't really go to the zoo between when I was an intern and when our daughter was born. And she's 8.5 now. But, when you have a child, one of the first things you do is start taking your child to the zoo. And that's really where the genesis of this book came from. I went back to the zoo and Rama was still there. And that was just a little bit of a strange feeling to think that he'd been there all those years in between. It's kind of like visiting a small town and seeing somebody that never left town. And there are so many little kids up there. And if you read the plaques in front of the animals, most of them are endangered. And one of the key elements that's kind of doing them in is human population, just that we're, even if it's not population directly, it's how we're using the land. Human encroachment on the land that they would otherwise be living in. And so I guess I kind of thought about that a lot. Because you can see little kids just like getting things greasy and dirty, getting their cages, they're pounding. If you took those walls down, I think the kids would probably rush in before the animals got out. There's a pressure there. So the book's a comedy, but I'm kind of having fun with a lot of those elements of those human-animal finite resources, really. Yeah. You had a question right here.
She asked it.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Tyler.
What made you want to have a voice on this subject and write this book? What was the first idea that came to your mind that had this idea born?
Well, I could answer that from a couple different directions. One is way back when I was a lot younger and I wasn't writing. It was just so wonderful to watch the elephants. I felt like I could I could tell stories and write stories about the elephants. I didn't, because I didn't write anything down back then, but what I did is I did write something back then. That's not true. What I wrote was a paper on infant Asian elephant development and play behavior, so a very different kind of writing. And in that paper, what I found by statistics, by keeping track every 45 seconds, was that Rama was the most playful elephant. And now he's a painter, so I like to imagine that that's cause and effect, although I know that's not really science. That's me just wanting to believe something there. But Rama's a painter. So in a way, that is the first impulse, although that was when I was still in my teens. Now, I started writing the book. The first section of this was in response to a prompt from Hugo House. I can't remember what the prompt was. It was something like, I don't know, I want to say it was something like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, it was some prompt like that. Booze and madness. They phrased it in some way. There's some phrasing. But I wrote a story that is in this book now. It's a scene with a character named Ben, and he's in the bathroom. I don't know if anybody's read it yet. Anyway, that was the first standalone story. And so then I kind of moved out from there, saying, who is this guy and how does he fit in this larger picture? And then the second piece that I wrote about it was Georgie's Big Break, that Andy Mingo, filmmaker extraordinaire, adapted into a short film. So I had those two pieces, and then I kind of started building out. And it was originally written as, I envisioned it as a pretty loosely tossed together. I wanted the stories to be not connected, to rest next to each other. And slowly I made them increasingly connected. And I'm glad I did. Now, as I see people read it, I realize that the way I had them originally might have been harder for readers to leap from one to the next. So yeah, closer together. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, Anne Marie?
Yeah, this actually kind of changes the question I was just going to ask. And we both teach writing, so I feel obligated to ask a question about revision. I'm trying to figure out a way to ask it so it doesn't sound totally self-indulgent. But seeing your writing from early work, like the Honeymoon Eat,
Oh yeah.
Clown Girl, and then I was really struck hearing you, thing on Think Out Loud, hearing portions of this book, how I really see your voice has really evolved. And I'm just kind of curious how your sense of, I remember you talking about Clown Girl, how you announced, oh, I'm done with the book, and then a few days later, I'm completely ripping this book apart.
That's right.
Completely changing it.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, has it gotten easier as you have done all this ripping apart and the voice has evolved, or is writing still as challenging as
I think writing's really hard. I think it's hard. I don't know. I'd like to think it's gotten easier. I've definitely learned some things, but I don't know that it's gotten any easier. What do you guys think? Does it get easier? Writers? There are writers in the room. Does it gotten any easier for anybody?
No.
I'm seeing heads shaking. Yeah, it doesn't get any easier.
Well, maybe I'm more curious about what you've learned, because I always like to compare so I don't feel alone.
I think that early on I was working, I don't know how to say, I hadn't, working just to get the narrative on the page somehow, or I was trying to get kind of a certain moods, trying to just build sentences, that kind of thing. Now I'm more confident in what I want to do, so it's less kind of, maybe less, I don't want to say less concerned about audience, because I am fully thinking about audience, but I'm just more confident in how I bring my work to the audience, I guess. My voice maybe has some more confidence. And one thing that I like to do, I think my books have, I think they're funny. I'm writing them in ways that I personally, I don't know if everyone else is going to find that, but I kind of entertain myself, at least. And I also hope that they have some gravitas, some weight with that. And I think I've gotten more confident at running those two riffs side by side, as opposed to thinking those are two separate things. Does that kind of make sense? I don't. It doesn't work for everybody, but I'm okay. I'm better doing that a little bit, I think. Yeah.
I had the privilege of hearing you read for the first time in Aladdin, a whole bunch of other really fantastic
You mean just recently?
Yes.
At the, was it the bag? Oh, the Aladdin, yes, yes,
I
yes.
think it was the Aladdin.
Yeah, it was.
You read this, I've never heard you read before. You read this amazing, incredible, wonderful, outrageous, stunning, amazing, just.
You didn't happen to record that, did you?
And I wondered, what was it, and where can I read it again? Is it in this book?
It's not in this book. I just wrote that for that show. And it was fun. The audience was great. Everybody laughed. It was such a high. That whole event was such a great event. And that was just special for that event. I wish they had recorded it though, just because I'd kind of like to hear it again. You know, do something with it.
Write it. Never written down.
Yeah, it's written down. But the part that made that really wonderful to me was the audience. You know, the audience was just so great. It's really nice to hear everybody laugh, and it was just a really energized place, I think. Yeah, thanks for being there. That was a great show. Yeah.
So you've been in Tom Spandauer's workshop, I have also.
Mhm.
How does it feel transitioning from the first person over to the third person? Because Clown Girl was in first person.
That's right.
POV, right?
That's right.
So-
Yes. Yeah, Clown Girl, first person. Tom Spandauer, fan of first person. Third person, I had to find a way that I could like third. There are a lot of things that are, that can be difficult about third person. I think mostly you just don't want that feeling of a sort of all-knowing voice looking at a bug under a microscope, where it just feels really orchestrated by this authorial voice. With the third person voice that I have in this book, I have multiple points of view. The third person sidles up very close to each one of those in turn. So that was sort of the fun of writing the book, is letting that, it's almost a first person voice, but it is third person. But it's third person that can kind of take on the spirit of each one of those characters in turn. That's my hope for how it's functioning. Third person is tricky, I think. It's tricky to not let it be stilted or distancing.
I've noticed this after writing in first person so much that it's hard to go to third.
It is.
To pull yourself out of that.
And you know, the answer is just in every single word you put down on the page, right? You have to say every single word. Am I merging this third person with my point of view character, or am I holding them apart? And maybe you want to hold them apart. I wanted to bring them very close. Yeah. Yeah, question. Hi.
Hi. So I have read the book already. It's amazing.
Oh, thanks for reading it.
But I was wondering if, there's actually a lot of characters you follow in there. And I felt like with some of them I was really, almost first person, like
Mhm.
how the
Mhm.
chapter is
Mhm.
with the characters, Sarah.
Yeah.
And then others I felt like took through a camera,
Mhm.
zoomed around with the character, and then in other ones I kind of felt like the camera was supposed to be right.
Yeah.
Were they supposed to be?
Well, it depends on which ones. I mean, there are a lot of characters. It's a book about population, so it's like a highly populated book. And most of the core characters I think you're pretty close to. There are other characters who I would consider a little more secondary, but they're not part of that key, without listing all the characters here. So there are some that I think are a little bit more secondary. But most of them, I think the camera's pretty close to their shoulder. It's just like someone cozying up at a cocktail party, just kind of, and adopting their opinions for a bit. So it's beside them, it's not internal, but it's close. Yeah, Abigail.
So thinking about voice and audience, and thinking about your daughter and her role
Mhm.
in shaping this book,
Yeah.
the simple question is, does she read your stuff, and what does she think of it? Or how do you see her as your audience? Like, does she?
Yeah.
I guess, does she read your stuff, and do you imagine her reading stuff later? And is there stuff that's about her and stuff that you share parts of with her? Or how do you?
I wouldn't say that this book is inspired by her existence, by the existence of having a child, but it's not about her in any, you know what I mean? And I would imagine her reading it later, not now. But she is a pretty smart and literary kid. She's actually got a reputation at school for knowing how to write like a real writer, which is pretty cool. If I can share one, she's got a line from a book. Maybe I shouldn't say it here. I mean, we saw this line the other day. She's got some great lines. Yeah.
Have you ever played the dead drum game?
No, only in my mind. Yeah, only in my mind. But you would get drunk pretty fast because there's a lot of opportunities. Yeah. Yeah, Lydia.
First of all, I love you.
Oh, thank you.
I've cried 3 times already. But I have a real question. One of the many reasons I love your book is that when I first entered motherhood pretty late, around 40, I didn't identify with the mono story of motherhood in any way, shape, or form. I didn't have the right clothes. I didn't care about the right things. I didn't have the right stroller. None of it. I didn't identify with anything around me.
Yeah.
Or any of the other women and what they said and felt. And one of the things I love about your book is it opens the mono narrative of motherhood back up to all its complications and contradictions.
Thank you so much for saying
And
that.
weird, fucked up feelings that you're not supposed to say out loud. And so my
Aspects of you, are they people that you've known?
The other day, I mean, on the radio, I would claim that every character in here has some aspect of me, and also at the same time, every character is not me, you know. So when that third person narrator is sidling up close and kind of sharing a point of view with that character, that is sort of me. But at the same time, it's somebody I've made up and pushed them in different directions because I want them to convey certain ideas and also interact with each other in belief systems that conflict. You know, they have kind of conflicting belief systems with each other. So there's that. If I, you know, honestly, the way I create characters, it feels very much like being a little kid and just playing with your toys. That's how I do it. I just play with them. You know, I just make them say things. Hey, what's going on? You know, they just play. Then I keep the parts that work and try to get rid of the other parts. So, yeah, that's my secret answer. I should. Yeah.
Are you working on your next book?
I started one. I got a good run at it. I've put it aside right now. You know, one of the things that I'm doing, and I'll go ahead and mention this, Nandini knows what this is. Along with launching this book, I'm also launching a writing program over at PNCA. It's an undergraduate writing program. So between this book and the writing program, pretty full up for a little bit, but I have 150 pages in another book, maybe 200 pages, and this summer I hope to pull it into shape. I ran it by some of my writing crew, and after that I realized I need to rework it considerably. So, but thanks for asking. So it's sitting aside, it's waiting there for me, and hopefully this summer. But were there questions I didn't get over this direction? Dylan, maybe, got a question? No? Okay. Lise, Sonia, questions back there? No? Yes,
Hey,
Nikki.
any news on Clown Girl being made into a movie?
No news on that. We're waiting. Yeah. Thanks for asking, though. Yeah, Brigitte.
Hi, I wonder if being surrounded by visual culture all the time at PNCA, if that somehow impacts your writing.
I think it does. I love it. In Clown Girl, there's a lot of visual references. It's mostly, I admit, tying balloon animals of religious paint, you know, religious imagery as balloon animals. But that's kind of me having fun with sort of an art history background a little bit. In this book, there are references to Vigée Lebrun, some painters, some different things, and that all comes out of being part of that culture. Yeah. There are probably other ways too that I'm so used to. That's sort of the air I breathe after being around PNCA so long, right?
It's just in that first chapter that you read to us, there seemed like a predominance of visual.
Visual? Mm-hmm. Well, when I was an undergraduate, I studied a lot of visual arts. I really enjoyed doing that, so I think it is informed by that. And you know, the writing program at PNCA is going to be this amazing mix of, it's a really good program for somebody who wants to study visual arts alongside writing. It's a BFA in writing, but it involves taking drawing classes and art history and basic design, and I think it would be really fun for the right person. It would be really fun for me. It's the program that I would like to be in. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Mark.
You're in kind of a unique position as a writer, in that as a fiction writer, you spend a lot of time observing human beings. But as a volunteer at the zoo, you spend a lot of time observing animals in similar sort of stationary format. I'm wondering, are they more like us, or are we more like them?
Probably we could only wish to be like them, right? Right? Be nice. I don't. That is a question I can trip out on when I can't sleep at night. Who is more like who? All I know is that the animals are just so kind of heartbreaking and sweet, doing their thing. The elephant cows, just watching the elephant cows with their 3 infants at that time was really interesting to watch. There's a constant shuffling of power. I suppose in that way they are like us. There is that kind of standing close and moving away. And if you just go to the zoo and glance and move on, you might not realize how many little power struggles are going on depending on how they're interacting without touching each other, just by taking up space and kind of claiming territory in those enclosures. And the bonds with the elephants, the mother-child bonds are incredibly strong. Yeah. Was your hand up? No, it looked like it. I didn't want to overlook it. Okay. Yeah, back there. Oh, 1 minute. How about you, and then we'll grab whoever. I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Okay, so my question was, you said that you weren't a writer like your whole life or anything, and that at some point you started to write. Can you talk about when that happened and how that happened?
Well, I wasn't writing. I had finished undergraduate school, and I was working in some art galleries selling artwork, and just spent a lot of time standing in empty art galleries, right? I was also a security guard for the art museum. So my work involved standing by myself kind of a lot. And I think that's when I started writing. And then I met Tom shortly after that and stumbled into his classes, and that really got me going. But really, probably everybody's had those jobs that feel like a situation, like a sitcom, where you go in and you have the same cast of characters, and then you have a few characters who change, right? If you've ever worked in a restaurant, doesn't it feel like a ready-made sitcom in a restaurant or a bar? Yes? No? Yeah. See, that's the kind of stuff that got me writing. Now, somebody over here had a question that I maybe missed. Was somebody wanting to ask a question? Yeah. Okay.
I've lived in a couple different countries, and I came back to the Northwest because I was born and raised in Oregon and Alaska. And just seeing how you're dressed tonight, and also when I came back from living in Hong Kong, I picked up Catherine Dunn's Geek Club, and of course she's from Portland.
That's right.
Portland influence in the novel.
She is here. Yeah, she's from here.
And so I'm just curious, how much of the Northwest culture do you think influences your writing? Like the speaking to nature and science and just, going through Portland. I mean, your writing in Congo is just amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And it makes me, I long to come home, and I'm glad I moved back here. But do you feel that this Northwest culture really strongly influences your writing?
There's a ghost. There's a ghost. That's kind of cool. It probably does influence my writing. I've been here so long that I'm definitely a part of it. So it's hard to separate the two a little bit for me. I'm from here. This is my dad. He's from the Lentz area from forever, way back. Yeah, we're Oregonians. So I don't really know. I am part of that culture.
Well, I have to tell you,
Yeah.
when I'm away, I get homesick,
Uh-huh.
and your writing speaks of home.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, it's beautiful.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for that comment. Yeah. Other questions? Oh, yeah, Kevin.
What do you think is funny in books or music or life?
What do I think is funny? You mean in what kinds of things or specific? I think Mark Russell's really funny, right there. Mark Russell's funny. I kind of like social commentary. I like Arrested Development. I don't know why they took that away from us for a while. It's coming back. What do I think is funny? You know, I think George Saunders is funny. I don't know, lots of things. Sometimes you're pretty funny, Kevin, in your quiet way. Yeah. Yes?
Where'd you get those ties?
They're from a company called Black Milk. Yeah, Black Milk. And they're more than tights. Thanks for asking. Okay, are there any questions? We'll wrap up. Oh, one more right there.
She was talking about how your books really have a Portland feel to them, and I'm kind of curious to know when they go out to a non-Pacific Northwest audience, do you ever get any responses from editors or critics elsewhere saying why are they so weird?
Well, you know, I do. You just reminded me of that. I do, and I think as the world at large gets to know Portland a little bit better, we hear less of that. But I know when I first started trying to market Clown Girl, I got exactly those responses. I got people saying, she seems so smart, why doesn't she have more of a job? I was like, does she need more of a job? She's doing okay. Yeah, there was a lot of that, just disconnect. They wanted her to be striving. They wanted her to want to do something great, and she wanted to be a great clown, you know. So yeah, I think there was. Yeah.
One question is then, as a Portland writer, how has it changed for you? Like when you go to New York, or you go, I don't know where the book people are now. I mean, besides
They're all in New York,
right,
except
you're all
for.
in Portland at
Yeah.
Powell's Books, right? But I mean, over the last couple of years, as your writing career has continued, when you approach somebody as a Portland writer, they probably do know much more about where you're coming from.
I think they probably do. They probably do. They probably.
Have you noticed that change? That's what I guess I'm asking.
I hadn't really reflected on it until that question, but I think between Clown Girl and this book, Portland has become more of a, as they say, a brand. You know, it's gained some recognition that way. But that is certainly not something I want to buy into, right? That would just be creating another kind of packaged narrative. You know, you still have to kind of work against that in Portland style, traditional, right?